Yes, you can get performance out of people when they're just thinking about the negative reinforcement. If I don't perform, I'm going to get fired. But you're not going to get someone's best performance that way. I'm Michael Mogill, founder and CEO of Crisp, the nation's #1 law firm growth company. I've built my business through practice, not theory. Crisp started with just $500 to my name and has grown to over 8 figures in revenue over the last few years, earning a spot on the Inc. 500 list of the fastest growing private companies in America. Our approach has been to take everything we've learned about generating massive growth within our own organization and help the country's most ambitious and committed law firm owners do the same for theirs. In each episode of this podcast, I sit down with innovative market leaders from the legal industry and beyond to learn from those who thrive in the face of adversity, challenge the status quo, and define what it means to be a true game changer.
This is Jessica, head of coaching strategy at Crisp, and today we're flipping the script for another special edition episode to get Michael's take on why there is no such thing as a misaligned winning team, why clarity is the ultimate kindness when setting and reinforcing expectations, and how to inspire a culture of collaboration and commitment.
Some people, I think, do a really great job of self-managing and creating an environment at home where they can be very, very focused and very productive. And I obviously see the benefits there, but that's not everyone. And for many people, I would argue, and most people, that basically where they sleep and where they work, when that's the same place, it's difficult to be able to separate those two.
That's coming up on the Game Changing Attorney podcast. And we're back. AMMA, welcome, Michael.
Oh, I'm grateful to be here. I'm excited to be here. I'll also say, at the time of this recording, we've had some good news in the city of Atlanta. So the Falcons were on Monday Night Football playing the Eagles. Every single, broadcaster picked the Eagles to win. Obviously, the Falcons were an underdog, and wouldn't you believe it, they won 22-21. And you would think in the city of Atlanta that we just won the Super Bowl, because I don't know if many of you follow Atlanta sports, but we're not known for turning it around at the end of the game and winning. We're actually known for choking and losing the game. So that was surprising, and if you're an Eagles fan, that's actually painful. You lose to the Atlanta Falcons on Monday Night Football. Oh my God.
My boy Jalen, you know.
I know. But the lesson here is that you just never know. All right, every dog has his day, and it'll be interesting to see what happens, because somehow the Falcons got not just Monday Night Football, but they also have Sunday Night Football coming up against the Chiefs. So maybe the honeymoon is going to come to an abrupt end.
I would say never get your hopes up with Falcons, you know.
Yeah, but I will say there's something to be said about just being able to turn things around at the last minute, and really being able to play a strong game and find a way to win. That's so good for the momentum in a locker room, right?
You know who also did that?
Who's that?
Georgia.
Oh, yeah.
Last minute win on that one, too.
Yeah, there's that, right? So Georgia was picked to be
we're
a
on the
20-plus point favorite and barely won it, against Kentucky, as we talk about college football.
Yeah.
But, again, I just look at it as the importance of positive momentum shifts within a team, right? Whether it's in sports or whether it's in business. You look at the game the Falcons played against the Eagles. When they win that game, they have faith in what is possible for this season. They say, if we can win a game like this, then maybe we actually do have a chance against the Chiefs. Who knows if they win or lose, right? Maybe they get crushed. I don't know. The game hasn't happened yet. That being said, it just gives them faith in what happens if they can all align and work together. And it's really the power of belief. And when you have it, you start to really push past a lot of limits, and especially mental limitations. If you can't get over the mental limitations, nothing else matters. If in the back of your mind, you're thinking we're not going to be a winning organization. We're not destined to win. Things always go this way for us, or we're going to lose in the end, and you go about your day like that in terms of your decisions and actions and so on, then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. But when you can even surprise yourself and say, holy shit, what did we just do? Then you start to reevaluate every other belief that you have. And that's a really great thing. So again, momentum can work for you, it can work against you. Sometimes if you think, okay, we're unstoppable, we're untouchable, and then you get crushed, that causes you to question everything you know as well. So it's been positive in Atlanta. We'll see what happens. Sunday Night Football and through the rest of the season, of course. But tough to be a Falcons fan, that's for sure, for many, many years.
That's why I just stay loyal to being an Alabama fan and never took on NFL. But Here we are.
So here we are at the AMMA. You guys submit the questions. We answer those questions. You can submit the questions by texting us at 404-531-7691. We do a few different types of episodes on this podcast. So there's the traditional interview format. We bring in experts from the legal industry and beyond. There's the encore editions where we bring back some of the most popular episodes. but you're not here for that. You are here for the AMMA. So Jessica, what questions do we have this week? And hopefully we can offer some unique insights.
Yes, lots of things around the team this week. So I will kick it off with question number 1. Our law firm has recently experienced rapid growth and with it, an influx of new team members. However, we are struggling to integrate these new hires and align them with our firm's culture and values. What strategies can we implement to ensure that new team members are effectively integrated and aligned with our firm's culture and values from the outset?
Well, so if we're talking from the outset, I find that it's best to align on culture and values before you hire them. So really at the stage in which you're interviewing candidates.
Starting even with your job description.
Yeah, even with the job description, because the worst thing is if somebody starts and they have one expectation and it's actually quite another, right? So if you guys are super laid back and everyone brings a dog to the office and the person you're looking to hire, they're like, hard charging, like just ready to crush and come in, then they're going to come in and be like, what is this, right? Alternatively, if you say, hey, we're super laid back and we like to relax and we're all about the work-life balance, and then they come in and it's just everyone is grinding, just kicking ass, grinding, they're going to be like, wait a second, what is this? So you want to make sure that you live up to whatever your marketing is. And I will say that if you've done a good job of that with through your job description, through the interview process, I don't think it ever is a bad thing or it ever hurts you to be as transparent as possible about your values and your culture up front. It's going to weed a lot of people out. Like, isn't that the point? Like, would you rather figure that out up front before they start? You might have things that maybe society does not love, but there's going to be candidates that draws in, right? So, and especially if you're like, we live in a society right now where everybody's remote and we want to be in person, for example. And if you make that very clear on the front end, then there's going to be people that want remote. They're going to say, hey, that's not for me. And there's going to be people that say, you know what? I'm sick of this remote shit. They're going to say, I am so excited to be back into an office, right? Or vice versa. Yeah. So the point is just that be very clear on that up front. And then where I see a lot of businesses make mistakes, and especially as we see with a lot of law firms, is they wait a really long time to test someone, right? To actually integrate them fully into the role. They say, oh, you know what? We're going to spend 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, just getting them ready. And then you're going to ask them to start doing things on day 91. And on day 91, you find out that they're absolutely useless. And instead, I would recommend yes, the onboarding is absolutely important. And we're huge advocates of that. And ensuring that somebody understands how you guys do things. They familiarize themselves with the technology. They familiarize themselves with the processes. They meet team members. Absolutely. But I'm always a fan of assigning projects in the first 30 days just to get somebody going right away, because someone's never going to be more engaged than when they start. And also at the same time, it's you don't want someone to get used to a lower standard than what you're going to expect from them when they actually do start, right? So meaning that when you step into the locker room, practice hard on day one, throw them in right away on day one. And if you're like, oh, I don't, I worry if we come on too strong or whatever, that's the best time to do it. Throw them in the deep end with support, right? With help, so they have guidance and they can ask questions and you're a resource for them. And obviously there's onboarding, but don't wait to challenge them until a quarter has gone by, because what's going to happen is they're going to be, they're going to get used to a very, let's say, a very lackadaisical way of life. And they're like, oh, okay, this place is actually much easier than I thought. And then day 91 hits and it's boom, they get, loaded up with just projects, cases, whatever it is. And they're like, whoa, I'm not used to this, because now that's going to require, a level of adjustment. But it's better to just hit them with that right away.
Absolutely. A couple of things on that, actually, even talking back to the interview process. I meet with all the new hires here, usually when they're 30-ish days in. But I met with one recently, and speaking of setting the tone and the culture up front, she told me probably 5 times, she's like, Michael tried to talk me out of it. He really, really tried to scare me into not taking this job. But that was one of her biggest takeaways. And, she's thriving because you set that, realistic expectation. And the other thing too about giving people projects and stuff right off the set is also give them something that's, quote, not their job. Because you also want to see, how does that person respond? One of our core values is team first. Are they willing to roll up their sleeves and do something that is not their job in their first week? And just see how they respond.
Absolutely. Yeah. When they step into your organization on day one, it should be like stepping into the locker room at the University of Alabama. And on day one at practice, and maybe they came from another place where things were done differently, but when you step into that locker room in Alabama, they're like, this is how we practice and this is how we do things. And before you know it, they're like, okay, this is the standard. But don't wait for them to, to set that standard when a month, 2 months, 3 months have passed, because then that's very difficult for people. Then you actually, someone has to make a huge adjustment right out of the gate, right? Because they got used to something at your organization, and now you're trying to change things up. This is why it's also difficult if, as a leader, you are like the lovey-dovey type leader, and you're giving out hearts and kisses and donuts and cookies and whatever, and then you decide to be like now the tough boss, right? Like before you were the cool mom or dad, and now you're going to be the tough one. And team members are going to be like, what? I don't understand. Like you can't just make that shift just because one day you decided you're going to be a hard ass, right? Because they're like, what about the last 3 months, 6 months, or a year where we never had a single difficult conversation?
Right. Yeah. All right. That tees us up for question number 2. So despite having clear goals and objectives, our team members often seem disengaged and lack motivation. What are some effective ways to boost team engagement and motivation to ensure everyone is working towards our common goals with enthusiasm? Oh, motivation.
Motivation. Yeah. So this says they've got clear goals.
Yeah.
But they feel like their team is not engaged or they're not as motivated as they'd like for them to be. Okay. So you have to think about like what can lead to that. And then you also have to think about how much does this actually matter? Like meaning is somebody failing to perform in their role? Are they failing to be able to hit the targets? Because it's going to be difficult to control someone's motivation. That's something, they wake up on one day and they feel one way and then maybe the next day they feel another way. I don't know if that's the role of any leader to fill someone's motivation cup, right? That being said, there's things you can do when it comes to engagement. And you find like, okay, if somebody's not doing their job or they're not performing at a high level, why? What could be the reasons? Well, the first thing is they're not clear on what they need to be doing. And it sounds like in this case, you are being clear because you said that we've outlined clear goals and objectives. So we're going to assume for the purpose of this answer that you're telling the truth. Okay, so what could be another reason? Well, maybe they just don't know how to do it. Like they don't know how to do their job, right? A lot of times people don't like their job because they're not good at it. And if they were actually good at it and actually successful at it, then they'd love it. This is why like follow your passion is terrible advice, because you could see people in sales and some people say, I don't like sales, but the ones who are successful in sales love sales.
Correct.
So a lot of it just comes down to, is it about what you like or don't like, or is it more of there's a skill gap? And that's something that needs to be addressed. Maybe it's a training opportunity. Maybe it's the fact that there's not a process for doing something. Maybe they're lost. Like they just, every day they come in and they feel like they're failing and they just don't know how to be successful. So that could also cause, a degree of, a disengagement in terms of like, do they have the resources they need to succeed? Are you providing them with the support? Like basically, are you checking every box that like essentially everything
you
control?
Yeah.
Like you can't control someone's effort. You can't control someone's motivation, but you can control whether they know what they're supposed to be doing. Do they have the resources in order to be successful? And resources could be like software, it could be like technology, it could be like training, et cetera. And then you've outlined like clear expectations of what is expected. And then you have a cadence in which you can, continue to provide them with support, whether you're meeting with them weekly or bi-weekly or whatever it might be. So you just have to cover your bases. So clarity on what the task is and what is expected of them, clarity on how to perform in this role, because if you outline a clear process and a clear, essentially, here's how to be successful, and they follow it and they're not successful, well, then it's your fault, right? Maybe it's the wrong process, right? This is the same thing we say with the sales team. We have a process. If you follow this process and you're not successful, it's my fault. If you don't follow this process and you're not successful,
your fault.
It's your fault. So what do you have to lose? So it's ensuring like that they're actually being trained on a proven process and that they are actually doing those things and doing those steps every single day. But outside of that, if you think, okay, the other things that could affect engagement could just be the incentives, meaning that, what is driving them to succeed? People are motivated by different things, right? Here I am using the M word, but it's a question of, okay, well, what's in it for them, right? Is it something that actually gets them excited? What are their goals? Like maybe they have financial goals. Okay, is there a financial incentive to overperforming in this role? Like, does that exist? And there's different types of incentives. There's incentives where positive reinforcement, again, sometimes it doesn't even have to be financial incentives. Sometimes it's like, appreciation, gratitude, telling someone they're doing a great job. Sometimes it's, a day off. Sometimes it's a gift. Sometimes it is a financial incentive, whatever it might be. But there's positive reinforcement for overperforming in your role, not just doing your job, right? Like a salesperson makes a sale and you're like, okay, what was the title again? Salesperson. Isn't that what they're supposed to do?
Yeah.
We didn't hire them to not do that, right? But when they exceed their quota, they're gonna say, okay, wow, that's incredible. Yeah. Let's give them some recognition. So there's that. But then there's negative reinforcement. Negative reinforcement is kind of like the Goldman Sachs model where it's like, if you don't perform, you lose your job. And yes, you can get performance out of people when they're just thinking about the negative reinforcement. If I don't perform, I'm gonna get fired. But you're not gonna get someone's best performance that way. Yeah. It's usually better that they have some sort of positive reinforcement for actually doing a great job, and it's something that excites them and keeps them engaged. But again, it's just making sure that there's clarity there and you've had those conversations. So those are really the things that I would look at. But then again, you have to control what you can control. If you've done all those things, and if you have outlined all of that, and you're still not seeing motivation and engagement, then maybe someone doesn't have a clear why. Maybe the vision isn't clear to them of why, what they're doing. Why is it important? How does it impact other people? How does it impact them? Have you drawn that connection? If they still aren't motivated and engaged, and you've done all these things, you provided like training, resources and support, a proven process, positive incentives, all this stuff, and they're still not motivated and engaged, well, you did everything you can control. And there's going to be things, you're dealing with human beings, not AI and robots. So there could be something going on personally. I don't know. Maybe there's something going on personally with their whole team. If the whole team is disengaged, I don't know. But usually I find that it's a lack of clarity, like true clarity about what's expected, and probably a lack of just, here's how to be successful at this, in terms of like, here are the expectations, here's the process, here's what to do, right? Because if someone is following that process and they are successful, then they're probably going to be much more engaged and certainly more motivated. And then ensuring the incentives are aligned, and then providing them with the resources and support they need to succeed. That's usually what it comes down to.
Yeah. It obviously starts with you.
Yes,
so.
Absolutely.
All right, to close us out today with question number 3, our team is geographically dispersed, with some members working remotely, which sometimes leads to feelings of isolation and misalignment. How can we foster a sense of community and ensure effective communication and collaboration among our geographically dispersed team members to maintain alignment and cohesion?
Did you know I was going to say what I said earlier?
I actually did not know that. So this leads right into question number 3 here.
All right, well, perfect timing. So it's a question of like, how do you keep your geographically dispersed team members aligned and engaged?
Yes.
Kind of similar to the last one. The only difference here is they're geographically dispersed.
Yes.
I don't know.
Amazon, they brought everybody back.
Amazon just Andy Jassy came out and they said, we're going 5 days in office.
Yep.
Right? It was starting January or something like that.
Gave them 3 months runway. Go figure it out. We're coming back.
Yeah. And you're seeing a lot of organizations do this. The truth is, I don't know. I will say this. So we have certain team members that are remote, and we have every morning when we do our morning huddle, like they Zoom in for the huddle. We also have a monthly all hands meeting, so they fly in for the all hands meeting. And there's also like our year-end meeting, and they're here for that as well. So yes, they receive the same company messages, like just have to do this stuff virtually, and you have to do it on Zoom. And some do this really, really well. They're super engaged. They're just as active as they were when they were here in person, right? Some people have just like moved geographic since they started with us. That's okay. But the reality of it is like, we all went through this in 2020 when everyone was remote, right? Like you had to be. And when we started with the Zoom happy hours and the Zoom games and activities, everybody loved it for like a week or two. And then, it
fades.
It kind of faded out. It's the nature of this stuff. The fact that like it depends on the type of team and the type of culture you're trying to build and what works best for you. I'm sure that there's people that run entirely remote organizations that say they have a great culture. And I would ask them and see what's working for them. Maybe I'm old school. I believe that great culture happens in person. Like if culture is the priority, I'm not saying that work can't get done remotely. It absolutely can. It just depends on what you prioritize. And the reason why I say great culture happens in person is because of like these interactions that are so, so important. Like when we have our team whiteboarding together in the room together, like the level of collaboration is so much better than anything we ever do when we're doing with Zoom. And you're saying, oh, but there's apps for that. There's like a whiteboard app that you can do on Zoom. Yeah, but everybody's like somewhere else. They're checking Slack. One's paying attention, one's not. One's got their dog barking, one's got their kids screaming. Is that what ultimate collaboration looks like for you? And again, I'm going to offend a lot of people. I'm sure they're saying, well, I'm so much more productive when I'm working remotely. And that may be the case. I'm not even here to challenge that. Some people, I think, do a really great job of self-managing and creating an environment at home where they can be very, very focused and very productive. And I obviously see the benefits there, but that's not everyone. And for many people, I would argue, most people, that basically where they sleep and where they work, when that's the same place, it's difficult to be able to separate those two. And essentially when they're at home, like not having any sort of other human contact besides these people that you see on a video screen can create feelings of like loneliness and separation and so on. Now, some people may say, I love it because I save so much money on gas and my commute and all that. And it's like, great, God bless you. But you also see in organizations where people, they don't receive as many promotions because it's kind of like out of sight, out of mind. Sometimes it's very difficult to get a hold of them. Like I'd say for more seasoned, maybe more experienced team members, like this probably works okay because they've already grown up within an organization. They've kind of learned a lot of the business dynamics. They've grown as leaders, for example, and now they're remote. That makes sense. But I think for people just came out of college and just started out, it's still difficult for me. And this is me personally. This is the AMMA, right? Like I'm sure there's going to be people that completely disagree with me. That's absolutely okay. You can find a remote only work podcast that, aligns with your beliefs on remote work. But I just think it's odd that you would go to school and graduate from college, then work out of your apartment and never meet any of the people that you work with and just not want to have any sense of like culture or collaboration. They say, well, I don't care about culture, right? Because I'm saving money. Well, I would say that, very high performing organizations are very much aligned. I mean, when we started Crisp, I'll give you an example. When we started Crisp, I couldn't afford to hire, any like full-time video editors. So everybody was like a contractor. They were in different states and things like that. We ended up bringing everybody in-house because we saw that when we were working with just contractors, there were being inconsistencies in communication, there being inconsistencies in the work product. People just didn't feel integrated or tied into an overall vision. When we brought everybody in-house, the quality of the work improved. Now we were sitting back to back with one another. They can like show each other their video edits, what they're doing. We do trainings constantly on terms of like audio and video and just everything that the team does. They go to lunch together. Like they truly form bonds when they support one another. And that's just very difficult to do remotely. And again, maybe I'm oversharing, but in 2020, we were able to perform an interesting experiment unbeknownst to us. So we went remote with all of our workshops and we had a new coaching cohort that started that had not worked with us previously. So they were starting and all their workshops were remote. And then at the same time, we had a previous cohort that all their workshops previous to this were all in person. Now, during that year in 2020 and even leading into 21, they both received the same content because everyone was remote.
Right.
But the ones that were like in person previously, these people developed bonds and relationships. They're sending cases to one another. They were in each other's weddings. The ones that just started virtual, like no bonds, no connections. It was just very transactional for them in terms of like the other firms, right? Which is why we do the workshops in Atlanta, to physically get out of the office. Because if this works so well from your office, right? Why we spend all this money on creating a great experience and providing meals and doing all this stuff. We just cut all the costs and say, hey, we'll just do webinars. We'd profit more doing it that way. But we don't believe that's what's best for our clients' experience. And we don't believe that's what's best in terms of serving our clients' growth goals and them actually achieving their goals. Because if we just allow you to attend the workshop virtually, some say, well, if they just gave me what I wanted. Well, what's going to happen is you're going to be on Slack or Teams during the day. You're going to have some fire in your office. Something's going to come up. You're going to get distracted. You're just not going to be able to engage fully. And part of the magic is being able to take yourself out of the office and really start thinking about the business and working on the business. And how can you do that when you're working in the business, at the business? You know what I mean? Like you're in the middle of everything and you're trying to work on the business. This is why we go off site. This is why you have to physically move yourself. This is why our conference is an in-person conference in Atlanta, not some virtual conference. We did a virtual conference. We did the largest one. We did it back in, 2021, the Evolve Summit? We had 5,000 people attend that virtual conference. We did it. And then later that year, we did an in-person conference. And I can tell you that on the in-person conference, these are the things that we could create like truly transformational experiences. And for the person listening, rolling their eyes saying, I don't care about transformational experiences, it's like just, you say you don't care, but do you want to take your kids to Disney World or Disneyland virtually? It's like everybody's all down for the remote work, but no one wants to send their kids to
school remotely.
Yeah. They're like, no, I want my kids to go in person. So again, I think you have to find what works best for you. I don't know if I'm even answering the question at this point. I'm just saying that like you have to decide what is important for you, because it's like you're trying to sit on two toilet seats with the same ass. And you're trying to say, I want great culture, but they're all remote and they're not here. And like you're trying to figure out like, well, maybe if we put everybody in the same Slack channel, and maybe if we send everybody a bottle of wine when we do our meetings, and like you think that is going to somehow get people like together when they're not together. And it doesn't mean they can't do the work. I want to be very clear. It's not to say the work cannot get done. It's just, can it get done collaboratively at the same level as when it's working in person? I don't believe so. And we've decided that for us, culture and collaboration is number one. And that's why we've taken the stance that we take. And then there's other organizations that say, hey, you know what? We're going to be remote first. And we're going to be an entirely remote organization. And maybe we don't care about accountability. We're just going to cut as many costs as possible. And just everyone can work wherever they want. And then their results are their results. And you want to know why there were so many layoffs in tech. And you want to know why there's so many layoffs from all around the country, really all around the world. Well, if businesses are performing so well, and if the remote model was working, then why would they be bringing people back? And I would say to your example, Jessica, Amazon being a data company, Andy Jassy, he was the one who founded Amazon Web Services, AWS. Like I'm sure they looked at the data, and if they found that like working remote was going to be better for their organization, and if they saw that those metrics were allowing the organization to be more productive, it's not like they care about the real estate. Amazon's like a multi-billion-dollar company. Do they care about what their lease is? They don't care about whether the office sits empty or sits full, right? Which is the common argument. They do not care. But if they saw they were more productive working remotely, then they wouldn't change a damn thing. Obviously, the data probably showed something otherwise.
Yeah.
Apple's doing the same thing. So many other organizations doing the same thing. But again, to each their own. I think you have to find what works best for you. But there is something to be said about like the dynamic that is created when people are able to collaborate and work together. Our clients come to our office every single quarter, and the team gets an opportunity to like the very people that you're supporting, like you get to see them in person. Like that develops a different level of relationship than like, oh, we just corresponded like pen pals on the internet, for years. Oh, you're a real person. You're a real human being.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, okay. Maybe we go to dinner virtually. Maybe we go to lunch virtually.
Yeah.
But you certainly don't want to go to Disney virtually.
And with that, I think that's the way to close it out. Thank you.
Until next time.
You've been listening to the Game Changing Attorney podcast with Michael Mogill. If you found this episode valuable, here are 3 free ways that we can help you grow your law firm. Number 1, download the first chapter of Michael's book absolutely free at gamechangingattorney.com. Number 2, you can shoot Michael a text at 404-531-7691 and ask him any question you'd like. You might just hear the answer on the next episode. And finally, number 3, if you can leave this podcast a 5-star review, it will help us gain access to more influential thought leaders and bring their lessons learned here to you. For more information on this episode, see the show notes in your podcast app or visit legalpodcast.com.